That's right. We've been here for the last 4 days tracking the conversations around how to make our built environment safe and how to streamline the operations of this critical sector. And I have been giving you statistics about this critical sector. And I told you that when you look at the total value of this industry, you're looking at about 2.65 trillion Kenya shillings. That is the total value of this industry. And when you look at the growth and the input to the national GDP, you're talking about 7% in the year 2023. And according to projections, this number is expected to go up to 10% by the time we get to 2027. So this is an important socio-economic contributor to our economic well-being. Here at the coast, we've been tracking conversations being held or the issues being raised by a team of Multi-Sectoral Agency Consultative Forum. They've been discussing how to make our built environment safe and, of course, the legal gaps that have been identified and how to address them. I don't want to give you too much. I want to dive deep. And I am joined by a team of experts around getting things right. I want to introduce them. We have Engineer Dr. Samuel Charago. He's the Secretary of the National Building Inspectorate. We heard him yesterday. He was talking about what they have done in the last 5 years. And also, we're going to have Diana Watile. She's the Director of Legal and Enforcement at the National Building Inspectorate. And we're also going to have Engineer Gilbert Arasa. He's a board member of the National Construction Authority. A complete cocktail with Engineer Samuel Charago. I mean, after 4 days of deep deliberations, what is the take home?
Thank you, Brian Kimani. When the subsidiary chair was here, the PS, not on the chair, there are major things we came to discuss here. One is to look at the policy interventions so that we can have what we call zero collapse of buildings in the country and ensuring that the built environment is safe. So we've been sitting here and we have looked at how far we have gone in this issue of how we can reduce the collapse of structures, and we have come up with some policies which we go to take ahead or bring ahead. We also enacted as a works policy, proposing some laws that can be amended so that at least any gaps that are missing will be taken care of, so that we have zero collapse.
Take us through three that are going to impact the built environment going forward.
What we have discussed is that we have noted the approving authority as a approved act is the county government. And which is coming out is that the county government should ensure that they have registered professionals who are able to ascertain as they check the work done by the professionals before they approve. So that's a request that they should employ qualified to do that work. And the other issue which has come out from the discussion is that after the approvals have gone through all the processes, we have to make sure that the professionals are so informed so that we don't have professionals who are on the board of the construction and they're not even aware of what to be informed through the National Construction Authority. For example, the Engineers Board of Kenya, they have a photo where the engineers are supposed to register their projects, which they are checking. So whatever is being done before when we are called the compliance certificates given by MCA, they should be informed.
And so
number three is we are dealing with the Building Control Act. We are saying we need to make sure this Building Control Act is done because it's mentioned by the because the physical planners need to work in collaboration with engineers and professionals, and for them to be also held responsible for their work, we need to have a law which is helping them at least do their work and have the power and the force as they do the work which they're supposed to do.
Very good. And now the fact that you're bringing in the policy perspective of these, and I want to bring on board. She's the Director of Legal and Building Inspectorate. Tell us something about the upcoming bill and how is it going to change the building landscape in Kenya?
Okay, thank you very much. We have the Building Code 1968, and it needs to be aligned to the Constitution 2010, and also be in touch with now the changes of technology and building. And we have the Building Control Bill. We want to anchor it, and it provides now for oversight, not only at the approval stage, but post-approval of existing buildings. And it also anchors the role of who are central and core to the building process, so that everyone can understand their role and their importance. And this is hoped that once we align
help us understand this. I mean, when you look at the building environment or the built environment, we have multiple players like National Construction Authority, Engineer Board of Kenya, the Board of Architects, the National Construction Authority. So what role would the new law play in streamlining the building environment that is not played by the current stakeholders?
Every regulator is important. And we're not coming to isolate, but rather combine and ensure all the structural. So we just want to enhance their capacity to be effective. Yes.
In terms of effectiveness, let me Gilbert Arasa, he's a board member of the National Construction Authority. And this, how are we going to situate the National Construction Authority in the new legal framework that is under construction?
Thank you, Brian. First of all, the previous cases of collapsing of buildings, and therefore their main mandate is to ensure that all the buildings that are constructed are safe to the. And, in terms of the buildings approach, it's not only just the National Construction Authority. Construction, the quantity surveyors, the engineers, and the architects, and all these people work together to ensure that the buildings are designed and constructed, and that they are safe to use by the public. And therefore, with this coming together, is to ensure that buildings involved come together, work together in our ensure that we have safe buildings.
When you look at the proposed regulations, they are talking about the creation of a national national buildings advisory committee. How do you plan to work with this committee to streamline the operations of the sector?
Basically, they will be complementing the role of the National Construction Authority, the public. There is a need to inform the public on what are the requirements for you to put up a building, because most of these buildings collapse because of ignorance. There are many developers who go to professional bodies and they use which are not done by professionals. And therefore, you don't expect those buildings to be safe. And therefore, the council will help in public awareness to ensure that put our building is aware of the requirements, that the building, the various professionals, the architects, the engineers, the quantity surveyors, and that is approved by the county governments, and also finally approved by the National Construction Authority. And the National Construction Authority, we have partnered with the Engineers Board of Kenya and the Board of Registration of Architects and Quantity Surveyors, and come up with a platform where all the projects are registered. And would like to know whether project has been designed by a professional and registered. You can go to that platform and check and approved by the professionals and the various agencies of government that are supposed to do that.
And you're bringing in the fact, the fact that there is a multi-sectoral approach in place to ensure that this sector is streamlined. I want to hear from you, Engineer Sharago. I mean, this meeting is coming to a close today. What are we taking home, and what's the way forward?
Thank you, Brian. One is to collaborate together and work as a team. We have we are encouraged that we work together in a collaboration so that we can be able to enforce and make sure that compliant matters are achieved. The other issue which has come up is that we need to work as professionals together. The Engineers Act and should be looked at. There's a clear demarcation what the engineers need to do and what the technologists need to do, so that there's no gap. Those kind of issues that we are looking at. We are also looking at how can we be able to ensure that all the teams are working together, especially in the most sectoral agency kind of a setup, like what we are doing here, so that in the case there is any issue of a sector. Yesterday I talked about a hotline, which is but the first and foremost, we have one hotline which is common to everyone, the police hotline, which is 999, 999. And what we propose to the Kenyans, when you call this line, you can ask the Department of National Disaster Management Unit. They are part of this group, which we need to do. And then for the public works, we have the 123 123. And 0726 123 123. These numbers can reach us, and we'll be able to come and see what is happening. Okay. The hotline is 0719 123 123 123 123. If you see any defect or any crack on a building, you can call that number. We'll send officers there. We'll rush with all the stakeholders, and we'll be able to come and help and be able to make sure that building is safe, so that it doesn't collapse when you're inside there.
I mean, this is not a number for you to call when you don't have bus fare back of UNGA. This is a number to call or when you sense that there is need for technical experts or advice when a building is involved. I want to bring on board now Diana. Diana, tell us things. I mean, when do we expect the new bill to be published for public comment?
We are still there are very many we need to talk to, but as soon as we have the schedule, we'll be. But we are hoping the sooner.
And the sooner the better for you means?
Year. Yes. This calendar year. Yes.
Help us understand, please. Apart from bringing on board that multi-sectoral approach, what else is the bill?
It what buildings are. It defines that work on the buildings. It processes are required. It also puts in place the public works function, its roles in buildings. Yes, so right now we have a lot of the Act will actually bring building control, which if you've built a house has very many different aspects, but also it brings in the aspect of research with regard to buildings, and it will anchor the role of National Buildings Inspectorate into the law, where we are able to inspect and audit existing buildings, which is currently a big gap. Yeah.
I also want to bring on board another player who is very critical in the construction industry, and this is the architect, the boards of architects and quantity surveyors. Gentlemen, architect, I want you to help us understand what is the role of architects and quantity surveyors in the new dispensation that is being drafted by NBI?
Thank you, Brian. My name is Architect Paul Chien. I represent BORAX. BORAX is the body that registers and regulates the profession of architects and quantity surveyors. Our role as a body is to train architects and register them, and BORAX has a good register for all the practitioners, so that the public, if you want to use or engage an architect and you're not sure, there's a portal you can check that this is a licensed professional that will be able to design and supervise your work, both architects and quantity surveyors. The bill that is being talked about by my colleague is essentially to enable coordination and put the professionals at the right place. The architects, quantity surveyors and engineers are critical in the construction development, and they need to play that role. And this bill is what we are working on to enable that.
I mean, in most cases when there's a crisis in the building industry, the people that get the slack are engineers and contractors. But we forget that there is also a very critical role that is played by quantity surveyors and architects. What is this role?
Architects originate the idea. Before you reach the engineers, is architects, quantity surveyors, then engineers. So as much as the flag could be with the engineers, architects play a critical role.
And they're like the owners of the dream.
Yeah, the owners of the dream. And that's why we emphasize that they have to play that critical role in developing this dream to the end. So
Quantity surveyors?
Quantity surveyors, for the public, quantity surveyors control the cost. They're the money people, so they will be able to advise on how the project is implemented cost-wise. Yeah.
And I like the fact that you are saying they are the ones in charge of controlling the cost. So what factors do they put in place to ensure that in their controlling they do not end up doing shoddy work?
These are professionals, as I said. They're licensed, so they have professional responsibility. The factors they put in place is look at the materials, look at the specifications in conjunction with the architect and the engineer, so that quantity surveyors actually have a good picture of what the market says in terms of building prices and costs. So that's what they reflect in the bill of quantities. And during construction, they go by that bill of quantity, so that you do not have cost overruns. But Brian, I think the more important thing is that architects and quantity surveyors and engineers, for that matter, are here to help the developers get a beautiful building at a good cost and structurally safe. That's what that's the essence of why they're licensed.
Very good.
Yes.
I mean, Ben Troy, these are the kind of conversation that we're having here in Mombasa. I mean, it has been 4 days of marathon conversations, deliberations, sometimes going late into the night. But of course, just to ensure that this industry, the interest of this industry is safeguarded. I told you it's very hot here. We're talking about highs of 35. And that's why we don't mind staying under the sweltering heat of Mombasa just to give you the right information. O'Brien Kimani has always been my name. Thank you very much indeed for listening. We'll take you now back to Broadcasting House for the continuation of Biz Check with Ben Troy and Joe.